It's time now for the Casey Ingram Show on WSTU. The opinions expressed are those of the program host and guest and not necessarily those of WSTU. WSTU does not endorse products that may be mentioned. Any reproduction or retransmission of this broadcast is strictly prohibited without written consent of WSTU. It's time to call in with your questions and comments at 220-9788, 220-WSTU. And now, here's Casey Ingram.
COVID, unexpected expenses, illnesses, there are many issues that can cause your successful business to slump deep into the red. We are here to help, and we only get paid if we provide you a workout. Debt restructuring is complicated. We are the negotiator between you and your creditors. Commercial Mortgage has been in the industry of small balance corporate finance since 2003. Our focus is on challenging corporate foreclosures, debt restructures, equity, and new debt solutions. These issues are often not easy to see or understand when you run a business and are faced with multifaceted debt challenges that include legal actions on various fronts. That's where we come in. We never charge a front fee or deposit. We are only paid if we successfully provide you a debt workout. Areas of expertise include hotels, marinas, office buildings, restaurants, apartments, multifamily, condos, golf courses, home builders, and land development, including new and repurposed developments. Call Commercial Mortgage LLC at 772-872-6099. That's 872-6099. Or visit us online at commercialmortgagellc.com. Don't forget that LLC, commercialmortgagellc.com. And folks, I want to remind everybody you can sign up for a weekly email blast that I put out that will let you know who the special guest will be in the studio. That usually comes out on Tuesday or Monday. If you don't see it, check your spam folder. It's usually there. And you can sign up at my website, thecaseyingramshow.com. And finally, I have an exciting announcement to make. This is actually the last show tonight at this time slot. We're going to be moving to Wednesday mornings at 10 a.m. So that starts next week. So tune in, WSTU AM 1450. We're still coming on the show. We're still here, but we're going to move time slots a little bit and talk to you all in the morning instead of the drive home at 5. So yeah, new things, new year, you know. And in the studio this evening, I have a repeat guest, Eric Miller from Talk About Martin. Eric's put together a group, this Talk About Martin, where we can really bridge the eastern and the western portions of Martin, northern and southern portions, bring it all together at Talk About Martin. So
that's the idea.
Eric, love the group, and I'm going to participate more in that because it's such a great idea. And I think it's a good way for anybody to become involved in their local community, and that's where it starts. You got to be involved locally, and then you worry about things that go on further on the federal level.
We really look forward to you being a larger part and having if you will, a blog space or a place to put some updates and videos out that we can help circulate and get into the sort of the underground news media, if you will, of politics and lifestyle in Martin County.
That's right. That's right. And I look forward to that as well. So I appreciate that opportunity right back. And today, Eric, you really have focused a lot on Indiantown, but it's all areas of Martin County. But there are so many things happening in Indiantown, and I think it's important that we stay focused and involved with Indiantown. This was an interesting issue because Indiantown just incorporated a little over 2 years ago. So since then, we're seeing how a new community has unfolded and how a new government is acting and what is happening. And really how outside forces have infiltrated.
Oh my goodness. It's been it's been a lesson, a college level lesson to actually put my toes into the water. I moved out there about 11 years ago after my wife and I sold our businesses, and we wanted a little easier lifestyle, a rural lifestyle where we could get away from the hubbub. Kick back for a while and enjoy some of the fruits of our labors. And unfortunately, I came from a pretty deep political background, and it followed me out there. And it's been fascinating to watch what's happened. And, I and a lot of other people have been asking, what can we do as an individual? Things seem screwed up in D.C. They seem screwed up in Tallahassee. They seem screwed up everywhere. And the only place that we can first take control of anything is one with ourselves. And if you haven't started there, people, let's get a grip on things because it starts at home. Right. And then you can help control your family and work with your family to build a structured place, and then your neighbors and your local community. And really, we're down to that level now. If we are going to rebuild our system and get people back into a very good system that's just become a little alienated because the wrong people in a lot of instances are running it, we have to get back to what we can control, and that's ourselves and the message with our neighbors and those around us. So that's kind of what's precipitated a lot of these problems, if you will, in Indiantown, and what caused the independence movement, as they called it. Miss Thelma Waters, who was just inducted into the Women's Florida Hall of Fame, is a longtime Indiantown resident. And she's a shining example of not blaming someone else, but going out and finding a way to get something done and to communicate, to make things happen in a community, not in a divisive way by using identity politics or by over propagandizing the color of her skin. You will never, I have yet to, in several conversations and interviews with Miss Waters, ever heard her bring up her race. She always has substance of character to talk about, but the politics in Indiantown, we can talk about that in a little bit. I wanted to kind of drive home the independence situation. It stemmed from the fact that the Martin County Board of County Commissioners, for the longest of time, including the school board, always sort of gave the short stunt to Indiantown because there weren't that many people out there. There weren't that many registered voters. They knew it wasn't a demographic they had to keep happy to get reelected. They gave Indiantown enough to keep them quiet long enough until the people said, we're done with it. We're taking it.
Indiantown, if I can interrupt for 1 second, is a donor community, meaning they pay more taxes than they receive back into the county.
Well, and large part of that is FPL, which makes up 85% plus rough. I know you're all going to hold me down to a decimal point on it, but it's a very large 80% portion of the tax revenue that comes into Indiantown. But in this independence movement, what's happened is the idea of American independence has been replaced with a very progressive and strong liberal democratic base, which it has always been in Martin County. And it now has a budget. It has the ability to make laws. It has the ability to mandate. And it also has the ability to annex and let people grow and build. See, the growth thing that Maggie and everybody was so concerned about happening, this is your seed that was planted years ago through neglect. It's the weed in Martin County that has an opportunity to be a real nice flower bed. But unfortunately, they're already talking about things like allowing a Tractor Supply to come into town. When you have a fledgling mom and pop run pet store, feed store, you have a lumber company that supplies a whole bunch of things that Tractor Supply does, and a litany of other businesses. So there's some issues going on, and every time they're approached in Indiantown, it always turns back to these propagandist ideas of you're just being racist because we are all minorities. And I wish it was that. I wish I could say that I was really that simple and stupid, but I'm not. And the color of these people's skin have nothing to do with the fact of the things that they say and the things that they're advocating for. Like online today, I asked a question when Anthony Dowling posted something about Black History Month again. He's a BLM supporter. He has a lot of tendencies, and he's the one posting this stuff, not me. I said, why do we have to have a month that's revolved around a race or a color? It seems backwards to me. And then was immediately chastised by a young lady that was happy that Miss Harris was now vice president, and she was a great role model for her 12-year-old child. And I'm like, well, given Miss Harris's background and what she did to get to where she's at and what she's done along the way, I'm not sure you really want her as a role model for your child. But then all of a sudden, I become the racist. I become the bigot.
Turns into race.
And that's the thing with identity politics, which is just in good constitutional American politics, it's the individual. You're an individual. There's nothing like you anywhere else. Yes, you're a human. Yes, you're a woman. If I can say woman still, I can still say woman.
You can in the studio.
We are all individuals as Americans, but we have a common mission, and that's what makes us from many one. And the identity politics takes that away. It says there is no individual, it's a collective. And we have to be diverse now within this collective. So in order to be diverse, you have to be Black, you have to be white, you have to be Hispanic, you have to be male, female, transgender, or something, or there's no way to individually show your difference or your diversity in a collective. We're not a collective.
Right.
And that's what's happening out here in Indiantown. I see it online. I see it in the mentality of the majority of the people that are leading from the dais up there, and it's scary. But Eastern Martin County should be concerned, because your corridor from Palm City, with the recent development that was just approved by the Board of County Commissioners on Citrus Boulevard and 714, with 4,200 new homes, count the heads that go into that. Indiantown now has an 850 home approval on a DRI that's already started building, and more development coming. They're already estimating another 3,000 heads in Indiantown in the next 3 years.
Wow.
So they're not going to hold back on building. They're going to take every dollar they can get to do with whatever they think they're going to do. And unfortunately, Unfortunately for a lot of people, what's going to happen is this council that's screaming for diversity is going to end up gentrifying the same people that they claim to be supporting right out of Indiantown. And people like myself are going to continue to be called the bad guy for trying to stand up for the people that aren't quite sure what that headlight is coming at them.
Right.
There's good things and bad things coming to Indiantown, but where's the heritage? Where's the preservation of what everyone wanted as an independent community? They're trampling it.
Well, Eric, I think that you're making the point that we started this conversation out with, and that is you need to be involved with your community. Otherwise, you're going to need to just accept what's happening. If you don't get involved, if you don't speak up, if you don't pay attention to what's happening, you're going to be run over.
Amen.
And so now is the time. I mean, you're trying to sound the bullhorn, so to speak, for everybody. Hey, let's pay attention to what's going on. And do you think maybe part of it is a language barrier in Indiantown? Somebody brought that up in a previous conversation.
I think that a lot of it is a language barrier, in that the way words are being rewritten and the meaning of words are not the same from what you and I were taught in school. There's different inferential meaning. For a lot of people that I engage with online will tell you that it's not possible for a person of color to be racist. So a racist in their mind is a white person. It has to be the oppressor.
Right.
Okay. So is it a language barrier? No, I think it's a definition barrier.
Okay.
And if there is a language barrier that's taking place in Indiantown, then my suggestion would be to the civic organizations like the Catholic Church and House of Hope, and maybe even the school board. If there's a continuing education class you want to promote English as a first language so that we don't have to maintain Spanish as a first language, then let's do something for the people. But to acquiesce all of the time and have to say we have to print all of this information in Spanish, why? How are you going to help someone assimilate into a diverse community of individuals when you are acquiescing and saying you don't have to learn, you don't have to speak the language?
So if you want to join in the conversation, we're watching on Facebook Live, and also you can call into the studio, 220-WSTU. That's 772-220-WSTU or 9788. And we're speaking here with Eric Miller of Talk About Martin. Eric, let's backtrack a little bit. Let the folks remember our previous conversations. If you can talk about the Robert Burns infiltration in Indiantown and where that stands today.
Well, yeah, Robert Burns, he's a character. I can tell you that publicly, the state representative out of Brevard County, Randy Fine, has become more vocal and active in the process of making sure that things get ferreted out down here as well, because I'm getting the sense that it's leading to even more things being uncovered in Brevard County.
Okay.
There is one lawsuit that took place that actually wasn't related to any of the Indiantown complaints that have been filed. And there are 12 now that have ethics complaints, either criminal or civil, that have been filed against two of the commissioners or council people in Indiantown from last time. But the 256-page deposition came out it was released. The court released it. And in it, Burns, when asked, said that, yes, when he was in Indiantown, he was paid to do some work down there, had to get the lay of the land, and that he spoke with 2 council people and some others. So, hopefully as we go through deposition on some of this other stuff, we'll find out who those others may be. I have a sense as to who those others are, but completely speculative at this point. But his name comes up an awful lot, given his position. So,
okay,
we'll see.
Right. We'll keep following that.
We'll follow that. But that is by no means off of anybody's radar at this point. Once we do find out what the truth is, we already have packets put together and the support that we need to start a recall election based upon the fraudulent actions that, took the seats from, what should have been legitimate winners. But
right.
That's
and this
the way
was
the system worked.
The second election in Indiantown.
Yeah.
There was the initial one that elected five commissioners. And this was to replace, I think it was 3 of the 5, was it, that ran?
Replaced 2.
2 of the 5. So,
yeah,
okay.
2 of the 5. Now 3 will be up again. Susan Gibbs Thomas, by the way, is a shining star in that council. How she has the grace, she has a better relationship with her spiritual side than I do, because my tongue would not have been bitten as many times as hers has been. She's taken a lot of abuse. Verbal abuse, really. I mean, tongue wagging and finger pointing publicly during meetings, and chastising. And it's sad because they're now controlling a utility. Anthony wants to vote to have a $2,000 or $2,500 slush fund they can use every year. He's constantly campaigning with his name, and it actually caused some problems with the vaccines that took place in Indiantown. I don't know if you heard about this, but
tell us about it.
Well, Talk About Martin was there, and I'd like to thank the team at Talk About Martin, because we had 2 days worth of coverage on this. We interviewed a number of people, and we were on top of the job, unlike a local CBS channel reporter that came out and just took the village council people's word for what was going on. There were people camped out the day before this at 7:00 at night in front of the Florida Health Clinic. Now, this was a private medical practice and company. I'm sure they get a lot of federal dollars given their rural emphasis that they do, which, hey, great. If that's the way the system works and you can get the money out of them, go for it. But
and Indiantown was a hot spot, or is a hot spot for COVID in the area, by the way.
That's what they'll tell you. That's what they'll tell you. But anyway, it was Channel 5 picked it up because Anthony had gone on his Facebook page and started promoting this like, hey, the village is here. I've got my cape on again. And we're, first come, first serve. Come get your vaccines. We've got vaccines. Well, the Seminole Inn, I don't know if you're familiar with the Seminole Inn on Warfield. It's the only place that you can buy, lodging on the streets. They sold all their rooms out short time after the 5:00 news because people were taking the rooms and wanted to be there in the morning.
And they were coming from out of state.
So as it turned out, we started getting phone calls. Eric, you got to go up here. There's people up there in front of what's going on. So we went up and looked. There was an 80-year-old woman that was one of the first in line. She had her 60-year-old daughter with her. The 80-year-old woman got one of the rooms at the Seminole Inn. We went over and talked to the keeper, the innkeeper that night that was on duty. And the 80-year-old stayed in the room because it was 50-some degrees, drizzly, wet, damp that night. It was a January night, January 18th, I believe it was. And we went back at 10:30. And there were now 18 to 20 people that were in line. There was a whole medical dental crew.
The night before.
When we got back up there at 5:15, 5:20 that morning, I did a rough count around the building of 241 seniors in their 60s, 70s, and 80s that were in line. I polled them. Where are you from? Anybody here from Indiantown? I counted 21 people out of those 241 that morning that were there from Indiantown. So the getting in the way with the over campaigning and just the juvenile nature of the way they're handling themselves is causing problems. I don't really think they realize the full
repercussions,
the repercussions of what they're doing. So as Janet says, well, we'll all learn together.
Hmm.
We'll all learn together. It's scary.
Well, it is frightening. And folks, I've had Eric in here before. Scott Watson from Indiantown has been in here before, and there's a lot of impacts that are happening to residents that were unforeseen. Those unintended consequences of incorporating. And Scott Watson is a business owner, and he's worried about the land use of his businesses there in the town, because they're changing right before your eyes. And I don't know how all that is, rolling out at this point.
He hasn't even gotten all of his full land use back from his property. He had to fight so hard for himself, and other property owners are having to do the same. But the blanket approach that they're taking to everything, and it's funny, they had people trimming trees in town the other day, and they left the ANSI 300 standard in there for their tree abuse in the LDRs, but they were not trimmed to ANSI 300 standards. I'm telling you guys, you need somebody new.
The tree abuse is real, people. I mean, it was unbelievable. They might as well have been murdering puppies.
Thanks for looking out for us, Indiantown. That tree abuse.
I've never seen that type of regulation on trimming trees before, but probably get away with more with other things. But anyways, so we got a few minutes left here, and there's so much more to cover. But just wanted to wrap up. Let's wrap up our Burns conversation here with the last 3 minutes, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about other things like school board issues here in Martin County, and maybe some county commission issues as well that you've been going over. So this is talk about Martin.
Well, yeah, it is talk about Martin, and it'd be nice to be able to get out of the swamp for a little while in Martin County. But again, Martin County, this is important to you because you're going to see the growth. It's going to start going up the canal. You think you got water problems now? Wait until you see some of the plans that are coming forward to put waterway restaurants on the St. Lucie canal coming in. Okay, it's going to grow all the way from Canner to Hobe Sound, and it's coming from Palm City in, and it's going to turn into another Wellington. And all of you folks that can hear me out there, have a friend in Indiantown, you need to tell them that they're going to get priced out of the market really soon if they keep supporting this kind of gamesmanship that they're being spoon-fed by the people that are in control. They're being taken to the cleaners, and they don't even know it. And
look at the property values here on the eastern part of Martin County. If you want to know what you're talking about when you say you're going to be priced out, you look at the land value of Indiantown now or 2 years ago, and compare it to what the land value is here, and you'll see what you're talking about. It's expensive to live in Martin County. It truly is. I mean, land anywhere to have a home, you're looking at I'd say a lot of starter homes. I mean, $300,000-$400,000.
That's what I'm saying. The cost, the building cost, the labor cost, and now we have all of these new Paris Global Accord type of things that are going to add extra regulation. And if you don't think that the things that are happening at that level aren't going to affect you local, you're out of your mind. Look at gas prices already, $2.50 coming in, and it's only been 2 weeks.
That's right.
2 weeks. One pipeline, 2 weeks, 50 cents.
That's right.
And here comes the rest of the prices. So yeah, affordable housing in Indiantown, you're fooling yourself.
I think that's going to remain. And there are a lot of repercussions federally that affect us locally as well. And we have to take it all in. But really watching what's happening locally is the first step. And I think it's the most important step when you're watching politics. It is what we can change. And it's also what impacts us the most.
Amen.
So if you really need to pay attention to what's happening at the city council and county commission meetings, that's where decisions are made. Just because you're at work, watch it later. They record them all.
Yeah, they do.
You can kind of get involved.
It makes my job
letters.
A lot easier.
Yes, it does.
Thank you.
You can go back. You don't have to be there that day, right? So it is. It's very, very important to follow the regulations that are being passed and developments that are being built. So
yeah,
like you said,
you should be able to open your mouth and
that's right. So
be heard.
We are going to take a short break, and we will be right back and talk about so many more things. We'll talk about Martin. Eric Miller. Talk about Miller's Martin County. There we go. And we're back. COVID, unexpected expenses, illnesses. There are many issues that can cause your successful business to slump deep into the red. We are here to help, and we only get paid if we provide you a workout. Debt restructuring is complicated. We are the negotiator between you and your creditors. Commercial Mortgage has been in the industry of small balance corporate finance since 2003. Our focus is on challenging corporate foreclosures, debt restructures, equity, and new debt solutions. These issues are often not easy to see or understand when you run a business and are faced with multifaceted debt challenges that include legal actions on various fronts. That's where we come in. We never charge a front fee or deposit. We are only paid if we successfully provide you a debt workout. Areas of expertise include hotels, marinas, office buildings, restaurants, apartments, multifamily, condos, golf courses, home builders, and land development, including new and repurposed developments. Call Commercial Mortgage LLC at 772-872-6099. That's 872-6099, or visit them online at commercialmortgagellc.com. Don't forget that LLC, commercialmortgagellc.com. So we're back here in the studio. We have Eric Miller with Talk About Martin, and we are talking about Martin this evening. So we spent you got it. We spent the first half hour talking about Indiantown. You can go back also in the archives on my website, thekcingramshow.com. You can go to Vimeo and watch some of those earlier shows about Indiantown. They're very interesting. We talk a little bit more about the tree ordinance and a lot more than that. But you'll get a little more insight of what's going on with the Robert Burns and where it is today and why it's important to find out what happened in the past, really, how we were first uncovering the issues here in Indiantown. So moving on, Eric Miller, if you want to join in the conversation, you can call us up 220-WSTU. That's 772-220-WSTU-9788, or join us online, and we're watching Facebook comments and be happy to answer those as well. So,
awesome.
All right, Eric Miller. So let's pick up with the school board.
Okay, let's go there. We ran a story several months back, and this was during the time that the school board was supposed to finalize the distribution of the property tax referendum money that was supposed to go to teachers.
Which was passed in 2018.
Checkbooks.
Fall of 2018.
Right.
There was actually two different referendums, and yes, there was one specifically for teacher pay raises.
And that one comes from property owners. That one was a property tax raise that people that own property pay for.
Right.
And it makes it kind of unique because not everybody that's using the service is actually a property owner. But still, that's a whole other issue to go down the road on. When they did this, the referendum had very specific language as to where the money was to be placed. We had to know as a voter whether we wanted to vote for it or not. They had to put forth legal language being very specific as to where the money was going to go. We had some folks that were involved in the process that gave us an oversight as to some of the ways that were being used in order to make the money move into different pots by funneling it through a different funnel and catching it at the bottom when it came out for different use over here. The primary was $1 million annually. It amounted to $4 million of the referendum that was being allocated into the pockets of non-teaching personnel. It's that simple. No matter how they tried to classify it. The last I had heard, and the absurdity was that they were going to classify the need to pay the and look, guys, I'm not anti-janitors, okay? I'm not anti people that aren't teaching in a school, because if you don't keep it up, there isn't going to be a school for anybody. I get all that. You guys are all very important. However, that's not what the referendum said.
Right.
So they found a way to funnel pay raises, and not to say the janitors don't deserve them, but again, we have a school board that's supposed to be accountable. That's why we elect them. They put the language together. They're the ones that said it was going to go to a particular place. And, now they're saying that they had to have these people as an academic, what was the word I'm looking here? They needed them because if the place wasn't clean, the teachers couldn't teach. So it was justifiable to pay them under academic initiatives.
Okay.
They wanted to go under, I believe it was, memory. I'm working from memory on this, but it was academic initiatives. So, that in itself is one thing, but when And we had a lot of response to that. We had 5,000 plus initial reads on the story when we broke this thing, and we had follow-up stories that brought in a lot too. People were interested in it, and everyone had an opinion about it, most of which the teachers were saying, look, these people deserve the money and so do we. And no one was arguing that. What we're trying to get to is the point that we have to hold our elected officials accountable. When they tell us they're going to do something, they need to do it. If you're telling us you want the money for this, then you need to do it. But I mean, how many people out there have children that give their 16-year-old their 16-year-old daughter or son $100 that night and say, you can only spend $20 tonight and don't spend it on anything I've always told you never to spend it on? Okay, maybe you got a lucky kid and you can, but I guarantee you look to see how much money they have when they come back.
Right.
We don't even do that with our elected officials anymore. It's just like, oh, well, we'll elect them. They'll go do it. We'll all run along in this wonderful little world that we have. And as long as it doesn't affect me, I really don't care. Well, the effects are coming. People are going to start to feel a lot of effects.
Well, the shame I see with it as well, Eric, is that the people of Martin County feel burned before that tax referendums have come up, and maybe they were specifically supposed to be for Parks and Rec, and they were actually,
Allapattah Flats.
So
how about Allapattah Flats?
There you go.
Remember back in the day when the county was flying helicopters with Sarah Hurd in it over the wetlands, and it looked like Marlon Perkins and Maggie Hercella was in her canoe out there, and it was all just supposed to be, we're going to raise taxes so we can buy this western land and save it in perpetuity.
And then when those taxes aren't actually used for that, we have a history here. You can tell me more about this history than I have, because this is...
Well, guess whose footprints all over Allapattah Flats right now? South Florida Water Management District, with a huge water quality basin that's out there. So, I mean, the timing on everything and the trust level that you put in. So the county then went and partnered with the state on some stuff, got themselves tied into some state grant opportunities to help purchase that. And there were requirements from the state. So now it wasn't in perpetuity. The state now was able to get South Florida Water Management, just yada, yada. So it's the same thing. I mean, if you really believed back then that your additional taxes were going to go to keep the Allapattah Flats in perpetuity, you were lied to, because they are not in perpetuity. Okay. There's a huge water basin that's a flood issue now that's raised people's flood insurance in the area because of the amount of water that they're maintaining behind an earthen dike. I mean,
right.
So
it is. It's a trust issue. And I bring this up too because there was a sales tax for Martin County that was on the ballot the year before the school tax, and it failed miserably. And it's like people didn't trust the county commission was going to do as they said they were going to do with that tax. They said, last time you had a tax raise, it really went to something else. So the school board really went out and said, we're being transparent. This is what it's for. And they worked hard to sell the people that this was for teachers' pay raises. And I think this is what your point is. And it did pass with over 60%.
Yes, it did.
Of people approving it, but it was for teacher pay raises. So when you're breaching trust for future needs as well, because there's going to be another tax referendum and maybe it's going to be needed. But people need to trust that those funds will be used for what you say it's going to be used for. So this is a breach of trust. Where does it end?
That's a good question. Where did it start? How much of it's been going on? I mean, if you can get away with a $4 million sleight of hand, and I'm the only one that brings something up, and one or two other people in a committee meeting that's not even watched. I mean, what do you do?
It's not even it's almost pitting the teachers against the janitors by they're giving it to the janitors. So now the teachers got to say, well, no, they're friends, they work together, but it puts the teacher in a bad position to have to say, no, this is my money. It does.
It does.
So all of a sudden it takes away the teacher's ability to stand up and say, this money really was intended for us. And,
I know
the public like yourself need to stand up and say something. Once you start
breaking the trust, I mean, it's like my father used to tell me, he said, son, you start breaking my trust. He said, that's not a good thing. He says, I've got to be able to trust you in order to believe you. So
trust is there until it's broken in my book. That's how I am. I'll trust you every day of the week, but when you break it, then how do you rebuild it?
Yeah. Shame on me if I trust you again after that.
Right. That's
shame on me.
So we're in a situation like that.
Yeah. So, the thing is, everybody says I'm so sick of politics. I don't like watching the meetings. fine. If you can tell me what your trim notice even looks like, if you stop the actual property owners in Publix and said, what's your millage rate right now? What's the county millage
Probably
rate?
very few now.
Yeah. How many unfunded approved projects are on the county's rolls? How is the county going to make up deficit spending? Most people don't pay attention to this, but it costs them because it increases the cost of living.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it's going to take for people to get back and interested. It's going to have to. I'll tell you what. I'll tell you about something else that's going on in Martin County. There's a couple of things. One, Mary Lynn Magar love Mary Lynn. She's a dear friend. We've had our differences, but I can still say that Mary Lynn and I are at certain level friends. I got an announcement in the mail. She did a mailer, which was kind of odd, announcing that she was going to run for chairman of the local Republican Party here in Martin County, which is a no-brainer for her. She's termed out. She'd be great at it. I served with her as state committee woman.
And if anybody doesn't know, she was the Speaker Pro Temp, Florida House of Representatives, and she is termed out now. So she did a fabulous job for us.
She knows the system. She knows how to get things done. But I just found it a little odd that she was putting her pedigree out there for people that weren't even going to have a chance to vote for her. And I think that's because a lot of, like we've talked about, it's turned into selling insurance and real estate, and it's become more of a clique than it has a local party. And I'm not sure that it's salvageable. I'm done giving up on trying to reform the Republican Party because it's divisional, and they're going to go the way of the Whigs. And in that, there is a movement that's going on nationally right now. It is here in Martin County, and I don't want to take their thunder away by announcing anything too prematurely, because I'm not sure where they're at. But this group is based upon the foundations of the First Amendment, and specifically the last sentence of the First Amendment, where it says, "Or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances." A lot of words in there. The people think that this just means you got a right to protest. And it's not what we consider protests, like these protests that came with signs and people throwing Molotov cocktails.
That's right. Destroying
property. This actually is a much bigger statement that's in the First Amendment, in the Bill of Rights, that actually went back to a way that we used to handle getting the ideas for laws into place. And what would happen is that in a let's say a state legislature type of scenario, the people, the voters, would come together as a formal assembly. They would assemble as an assembly. They would then peaceably draft a petition, a list, a notice, a petition that they were to give the government for purpose of redress, meaning, you did that all wrong, and we're here as an assembly to petition you and tell you, or we have some grievances. Okay.
Right.
This is the way that our system used to be driven, is by the people that used to do this. This was never put aside. It is still in the Bill of Rights, the very First Amendment, making it the most important of all of them, dealing with free speech and the right to redress your government, et cetera, et cetera. These are very important. They were replaced because of geography over time. New systems were implemented for these types of things. Parties took control of it and said, well, our party will take care of that for you. Come under the party umbrella. And it's been lost in the dustbins until recently. And it is still the legitimate foundation of redressing and bringing grievance forward. This isn't going to the public speakers section and only getting 3 minutes to say, I'm upset with you. Okay.
Right.
This is a Bill Summers approach. Okay, where there's a bunch of Bill Summers that come together, but they don't go through the 3-minute process. They actually formally place a petition in the lap of the county commission. They place a petition in the lap of the school board, and the school board then is to answer to them. They are a formal assembly. This is the process that's coming along, and it's not a political party. It's a process. It's sort of like the Le Pen movement. If you think about how the Le Pen movement moved through, it had organization to it. It was very socialist. I mean, I don't support the Le Pen movement, but they always said, like Antifa, it's just an idea,
right?
So it's it's a way of redressing your government, requesting and demanding change without having to be in a political party to do it. I think that this is going to end up, this concept right here could very well end up being the foundational basis of a new party for those that are in the Republican Party and the Democrat Party that do not like the way their parties are dealing with them and giving them nonsense and not delivering on what they're supposed to be. This is where the people can come back together. And it's going to take this level of I've had enough, because you start to feel your rights being taken away from you. People should get nervous. And unless we've talked about this on the show before, unless they have a place to go and there's someone there to catch them and somebody to take them over here and say, here's a direction we can go peaceably to correct this. We don't have to be Seattle. We don't have to be Portland, and burn things down.
That's right.
So again, this is where the individual comes into play, a collective of individuals.
That's very interesting, and I'm very I'll be watching that very carefully over the coming months. I think it's important. The closest thing I can think of that we have right now is the pre-legislative meetings that our legislators will hold. We'll have a senator and the local representatives, House representatives. Here, like on the Treasure Coast, they would have Representative Harrell, Toby Overdorf, and John Snyder. And they have a pre-legislative meeting where the public can come in and say, we would like this changed, or we would recommend this be a bill. That's the closest thing we have. And it's really not a grievance, but it's the closest thing there is.
It's the closest thing we have. And it's sort of along that line where the assembly then could bring their petition forward at a meeting like that. Usually I've participated in those with Mothers Against Drunk Driving when I was serving with that organization here, and with Representative Harrell, to try to get some legislation passed. So you find a lot of NPOs, a lot of people whose organizations are dependent upon the good nature of the pen from a legislator to help their continued funding that end up showing there. There are a lot of funding requests that come out of it. But yeah, it's at least close. Yeah, it's similar to it.
We don't have a county commission meeting like that, or a city council meeting like that, or for the federal representatives. So, and I don't know that other states have what we have here in Florida with the pre-legislative meetings. Honestly, I don't know that.
I don't know that either.
I mean, that's the closest thing I see. And I think it's so important. It's like the one way where the average citizen can come out and talk to their representative. They don't have to set a special meeting. They don't have to be nervous. They're in a group with their peers.
Yeah.
And it is time to do this. So if people want to get involved with this movement,
keep your eye on talkaboutmartin.com. Okay. And I don't want to take their punch from them. The people that are behind, I know a lot of the people that are in this. I've been invited to participate. I don't have the time personally to dedicate to it right now. And that's why I'm staying back, because this is a participatory process. And, there's enough people with great ideas. They need doers.
That's right.
Yeah, we all do. And that's the thing too that I found in politics, man. Everybody has a great idea and they just want you to go out and get it done for them.
That's right. There's a lot of armchair quarterbacks, I call them. They know how it gets done, but you go do it.
You get it done, man. Here's an idea for you. Go run with it. I can't tell you the number of times, and it'll sound familiar to a lot of people, that you're like, all right, let's go. And you're walking out front, and the next thing you know, you go, it's awful quiet back there.
Yeah,
and
that's
you turn
right.
around and there's nobody behind you. It's like, okay, guys, here we go again. Isn't this fun? So
it's one of those issues we're talking about the school board here a little bit. Unless it's in people's face, really impacting them, they just tend not to get involved. And everybody's busy. We have our personal lives and children and schools and maybe illnesses in the family, whatever it is. It's very easy to, if it's not in your face bothering you, to just set it aside and say, that's not my problem. I'll worry about that. Let somebody else fight it,
Yeah, well, that's generally the way. But we've allowed this thing to become a beast, man. You grab onto it like talk about Martin did with the school board thing. You're grabbing a tiger by the tail, and you better hang on because it's going to wag.
Right.
They shut their YouTube video page down.
Really?
Couldn't comment on it. I mean, I was asking questions on it.
Right.
I was being respectful.
But you had questions, right?
But
transparency.
They had to tighten everything down, and I
Eric,
never did get a response. I've
stirring a pot.
Yeah, that's me. That's me stirring the pot.
Eric, let's talk a little bit about something here federally. I posted an article online about term limits. I absolutely support them myself.
Yes.
I think that without them, it really opens the door for so much corruption. When you have somebody that's in politics forever, they can establish relationships and get paybacks. Now, there's a few exceptions to that. I've had some politicians that I'm like, I wish they could be in office forever, but it's so few.
What happens though, the other side to that argument, and I agree with you when you look at it that way, but what happens when you actually have the bureaucratic 30-year government federal worker that you end up in positions where every time you're turning over, you now have the bureaucrats that are running the Pauls because the Pauls are the new ones and the bureaucrats now run come here, I'll help you.
Right.
I'll help you.
Right.
I'll help you. So, I mean, it's
right.
The whole thing. Look, if it's a department, I think it should just be defunded for 6 months and let's see what we really need and what we don't.
Right.
Honestly.
Right.
I don't know where you were going with that, but
so
that bureaucracy is just incredible.
It is absolutely incredible. And elected officials are supposed to be public servants. I mean, George Washington, the father of our country, did not want to serve more than 2 years because he wanted other people to come in, other ideas. He didn't want a king.
Right.
And some of these positions and some states will have some term limits and others don't, and it's a frustrating thing for me. I think that we need the fresh ideas. We need fresh blood in Congress. This is where lobbyists have a lot of control if they have somebody that they can keep getting elected and control that person. So that's kind of where I'm.
Yeah, well, follow the money. I mean, really, I won't even have to use any politician's name because regardless of the side of the aisle that you're on, you're already going to pick one. When I say, look at what they started with when they went in, they took $100,000 and some odd $1,000 a year job for 30 years. They've lived in D.C. and they now have 3 mansions and everyone in their family is worth 6 figures. How did this happen?
Right.
By being a congressman?
Right.
Uh-huh.
That's
or a senator?
Right. Yeah.
Sure.
That's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. And we have examples of that all over the place. And, right now, and I'll say it out there, it's a hot button, but, President Biden's son.
Yeah.
He's a prime example, $1 million a year job, over in the Ukraine.
Well, the one that
yeah.
really gets me, the Ukraine was bad enough, and I mean it's an open and shut case in my mind. I've followed this for the past 3 years and looked at a lot of evidence, strict evidence, not just hearsay, first source evidence, and I'm convinced that Biden was as corrupt as it came with it. But then you start looking at China and the technology that Hunter was able to get out of the U.S. and into the Chinese hands. It actually went into military use for stabilization within their jet fighter platforms. And it was allowable because it was a dual use technology that was also able to be used in autonomous vehicles. Wow. So, to make money at my expense, my country, my Constitution and Bill of Rights, and my tax dollar is wrong. And I don't care who says that I'm anything for it. I'm against anyone in any party that wants to take advantage of this country. Take advantage of this country. And also you're that's what protects us. Our technology protects us. And if we start sharing the technology that protects us, you really, to me, that borders on treason because this is about our safety. And if we're sharing secrets that are going to help their military against us, or here's some censorship for you. How about what the the federal government has done with Robinhood, the trading app, and GameStop? Oh gosh, that's an absolutely censorship. See? It's an open, legitimate platform. You can sell, but you can't buy now. Yep, because we all figured out how to beat the system with the system, right? And we're using the tools that you gave us, but all of a sudden it becomes, hey, you can't do that to us because you got a $1.5 billion hedge fund manager that didn't see it coming. That's right. And that's exactly what they're doing. It's a good point. There's so much censorship going on lately.
obviously with the Twitter platforms and Facebook, but this latest one with the stock market and the SEC, these apps are they're not letting folks buy stock. Only sell because it's protecting the hedge funds who shorted stocks, and when they couldn't sell them,
they were in trouble. It serves them right.
It does, and it is. It's it's the free market, right?
Hey,
what's the free market?
When you're selling 500 pieces of paper silver to one piece of physical silver, I hope that the ETF trade on that side actually gets tanked. To tell you the truth, because physical silvers should be a lot more valuable than it is right now.
Than the paper. Ken Vreeland, Frank, thanks for tuning in. There needs to be a 2-term limit maximum at the Martin County BOCC, Board of County Commissioners. It's like something everybody's, when they're a candidate, yes, we want term limits, but it just never happens when our officials get elected, does it?
Nope,
it just
never
goes
does.
Away.
Just never comes up, does it?
Nope, never brought up again. So,
well, there is a way that we can change this. There is a different way for the commissioners to be elected in Martin County. I don't know if you know that.
Sure.
Through the Florida statute, we perform one of the two ways right now, where each commissioner comes from an at-large. They come from a district, but they're elected at large, so meaning the entire county can vote. So somebody in Hope Sound can vote for somebody in Jensen.
Right.
Crazy.
Right.
We could go another direction where we actually have 7 commissioners, and the first 5 commissioners are only elected out of their district.
Okay.
So Jensen Beach would have to elect somebody, so they become more accountable. And then there are 2 that are at large at the top.
Okay. I like that, actually.
And this takes away a lot of the power, and it consolidates. It gives you sort of a House and a Senate modality almost, to where you have people closer to the people, and then you have these grand overseers that are your 2 at large. I kind of like the idea, and we're working on ways that we can get that done.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. And I always wondered why you have to live in a certain district, but the whole county votes for that commission. It's like, what's the point?
Yeah.
Either don't have an address restriction or have just that district vote for the person that's in that district.
Exactly.
I mean, it doesn't make sense. So this 7-person board is very interesting, and it'd be interesting to hear what the current county commissioners think of changing something like that, because that's where you got to start, because they have to change the rules, right?
You should have them on and ask them.
I will. I think it's a good question. I do. So I want to remind everybody I'm moving to a new time next Wednesday starting at 10 a.m. So it'll be Wednesdays at 10 a.m. We'll still have Facebook Live. We're going to be on air. We're still going to record it. So if you can't tune in live, you can watch the show later. But hope you can tune in. And that's WSTU AM 1450. And, of course, Facebook Live on the Casey Ingram Show. Eric Miller, Talk About Martin. Make sure you visit his website, talkaboutmartin.com. And it has everything about Martin. So, Eric Miller, appreciate you tuning in and joining us today.
Thanks for having us, Casey.
You got it.